Okay, so this is the fall land development seminar, and we have a lineup of various agencies here to give you some information on what's been going on with them over the past year and what's coming up. So we will get started and start out with Geospatial Technology Services with Carlos Meixner. And if you could, Carlos, go ahead and just let me know when you want me to move through your slide presentation.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Geospatial Technology Services portion of today's seminar. My name is Carlos Meixner, and I will be covering the GTS portion of Addressing and Plan Review. Next slide, please. I am one of 5 members that make up the GTS addressing team. The others on the team are Sarah Sullivan, our team manager, Matt Lachelle, Jordan Riley, and Jessica Tell. We are currently fully staffed. Since Matt and Jordan have different roles and responsibilities than Jessica and myself, a cross-training program has been implemented. The goal is to not have the customer experience affected due to any absence or position vacancy on our end. Next slide, please. For addressing, GTS is tasked with assigning and maintaining all addresses within Prince William County, with the exclusion of some localities like the city of Manassas, Occoquan, and Quantico. They handle their own addressing. We just host it on our mapper. Addresses are assigned following specific guidelines that conform to public safety needs. Consistency is our goal. The addresses are typically assigned early in the site and subdivision plan review process. New addresses are needed prior to final approval of your site plan. There are times, though, when a project won't need a plan review, but still may need addresses. If that is the case, or if you're uncertain if this applies to your project, please send us an email. Our team can be reached via email at gisreview@pwcva.gov. And I'll post that in the chat when I'm through. Next slide, please. All right, for addressing and plan review, we assign a unique address to all occupied structures. It is important that the external doors and driveways are included with any plan submitted in order for them to be addressed properly. Additional information is required for multi-tenant buildings. To assign suites, apartment numbers, the submitted plan must include a suite/apartment layout and internal doorways for each floor. The sprinkler rooms should also be clearly marked on the plans, as they too require a unique address. Certain changes to the plan may result in changes in address assignments. These changes can be internal, such as doorways, or external, vehicular access, or like an external door location was moved. The sooner changes are brought to the attention of GTS, the better. It saves time and you guys money. Please contact us if any changes occur through that GIS review email address, which I'll post at the end. Occasionally, we will require additional signage. This all depends upon the building layout and street access. Next slide, please. Streets. GTS approves all street names and the types. As with the addressing, specific guidelines are in place for consistency. Public safety is a driving force behind what we do. For more information, more detailed information, please see DCM 603.22 and 603.23. Next slide, please. Streets and plan review. So there are a couple options for getting a street name approved. The most common is to include your proposed street names on the plat and plan at submission. The other is to contact us for street name pre-approval at that same GIS review email address. If we approve a street, a pre-approval, we'll add it to a reserved street names list, and that name will be reserved for your project for a period of 7 years. After 7 years, if that project is not built out and that street name not used, it is removed from that reserved list and it goes back out for anybody to use. If that happens, a new street name request would need to be made by the applicant, developer, or owner. We occasionally require the naming of easements and to also to include additional signage. The naming of an easement does not change your design or construction requirements from other agencies, including transportation. Next slide, please. GTS, we are responsible for reviewing other items on the plats, plans, and deeds. A few of those, as you can see, are the parcel boundaries, the lot IDs, G-pins, for the site and neighboring G-pins, as well as existing streets and addresses. Slide, please. So for our GTS updates, Sarah Sullivan returns to the addressing team as manager. Processes may have changed since she was a GIS plan reviewer way back in 2015 to 2019, but the experience and leadership she brings is invaluable to our team. Jordan Riley is our newest addition. Both Jordan and Matt are one of the GTS team's first points of contact with the public. DoIT is fully remote, waiting for the completion of our office renovation. For this reason, we ask that you include all documents for GIS review in your ePortal account connected to the project. We've also started to request CAD files be sent to the GIS review email address for certain projects. This enables us to make the changes more efficiently to our county GIS and public safety data. Last slide, please. For GTS resources, as mentioned before, more detailed information on the things I've covered can be found in DSM sections 100 and 600, as well as the County Code of Ordinances, section 24, article 2. We also have the GTS website, which I'll post that address to. You will find links to the county mapper, the data portal, address validation forms, and a ton of other information. Thank you for your time. As mentioned, if there are any questions, please use the GIS review at pwcva.gov email address to contact us. There are multiple eyes watching that inbox. It's the quickest way to get a response, as the owner never goes on vacation. That concludes my chat.
Thank you, Carlos.
You're welcome. Thank you for slide work.
Thank you. Okay, so next up on our presentation is the Transportation Department. I believe Paulo is here to present.
Yes. Thank you, Joyce. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paulo Belita. I'm the Assistant Director of Transportation for the Planning, Traffic, and Inspections Division of the Department of Transportation. I'm joined by key members of our division. Don Margraf, he is the Transportation Site Inspections Section Manager. Chris Adams, Inspections Supervisor, and Richard Wyman, he is our Traffic Safety Engineering Section Manager. As always, we work very closely in working with the development community and ensuring that standards are met and ensuring safety in all our roadways and development areas as well. Today, we want to take a few minutes to discuss several initiatives and updates that we want to share with everyone. We're going to do a quick update on the DCSM Section 600 Transportation section. We'll be discussing orphan roads, explaining what they are, and also talk about the pre-construction package. And we'll wrap up and talk about different topics related to traffic safety engineering. Next slide, please. As part of the DCSM Section 600 update, we began efforts early this year. The board initiated update to the entire section. Previously, we've updated small areas of transportation section. This is the first time in a long time where we're going to look at the entire document. This is really based on new guidance from the mobility chapter and the comp plan update. We also want to make sure we are aligning with VDOT standards as well as the latest industry standards. We also want to address any emerging technologies and also look at the document as a whole. We want to make sure that the document is streamlined. We want to combine similar sections remove redundant references, and really look at limiting changes to section numbers and detail numbers. And in terms of timeline, I mentioned the board initiated this early this year. We awarded a task order to a consultant, Dewberry, to help us with the update. We anticipate to have a draft sometime early in 2024 with approval both by the Planning Commission and the board in middle of 2024. So we're about 20% through our update. Some of the other things we're looking at are roadway requirements, parking requirements, restaurant parking standards, and other issues as well. So that is just a quick update, and we'll continue updating the community as we go through this process. Next slide, please. I will now hand it over to Don Margraf.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Don Margraf. I'm the Site Inspection Manager for County Department of Transportation. I'm going to talk to you today about orphan roads. What is an orphan road? Well, this is a road dedicated to the county for public street purposes, but could not meet the VDOT secondary street acceptance requirements, such as 3 or more occupied residential or commercial uses, a minimum of 100 vehicles per day. Bonds have already been released. The road is old and unmaintained and disrepair. But fortunately, the Board of County Supervisors has funded the Orphan Roads program since July of 2021. So we're in our 3rd year. So to start this Orphan Roads process, some of us in the county staff actually perform a county and VDOT inspection of the road. We draft a punch list, create a county cost estimate, hire contractors to make necessary repairs, and then process the road for VDOT street acceptance. So far, since this inception, we've got 6 roads that have actually been completed, and now they're in the state maintained road system. And they are as follows: Hanson Court, Gardner Park Drive, Bayside Avenue, Nolan Road, Wigglesworth Way, and Industrial Court. And currently we're working on the Candace Drive Roundabout and Industry Court. And what I have waiting in the wings is Bel Air Road. That concludes my presentation. Didn't know if we're going to take any questions right now, or I guess we'll take them later. If not, I'm going to turn this over to Chris Adams, and he's going to talk to you about the pre-construction package.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? First, I'll start with a little history on it. Pre-con package has been around for decades, been here longer than I've been here, and it's been updated over the years by many different people. So it ended up having a lot of errors in it. So we kind of started to revamp it. But to give some more history, if you're not aware, the pre-con package is really good to help you throughout the construction and bond release. It covers testing, general things like noise ordinances, your cut sheets, inspections for concrete, snow removal, extensions, even fire marshal office information. It covers occupancy requirements, phased construction, and everything you need to know about VDOT acceptance and your paper package and having it accepted. Also covers a lot of the environmental requirements and forms you need. Also covers as-built, storm sewer TV, and bond release. And due to the package always being changed with codes changing, policy changes, fees changing with county DOT, VDOT, watershed, fire and rescue, it ended up with a lot of errors. So it was a big problem. So Jen Warren took the lead, and we were able to redo the entire package, and had to research all the codes and bring everything up to date with policies, put things on current letterheads. Table of contents was created to make it a lot easier to get through. You can search and take you directly to the page that you need. A legend was added, so we found some areas that some of the acronyms weren't listed, so that I think that's very helpful. And now the package is covered primarily handled by Jen. So everything will go through her, and it cuts down on the problems we've had in the past with kind of too many hands in there in the cookie jar, I guess. And then for future, we're going to have create internal links so that when you click on something, it'll take you directly to where you need to go. And we're updating other forms, some of the VDOT finals and the OP form. And one item that I wanted to bring up was board action won't be able to be requested until after the VDOT preliminary walk. That's something that VDOT wanted changed. So that's kind of a big change. And all the forms will be fillable, and it'll be updated annually. And that we think that'll be early May. And so anything we'll need to gather in April, which I guess when fees come out. And that's really all I've got. If Richard wants to take over.
Thank you, Chris. Next slide, please. Good afternoon. My name is Richard Weinman. I'm the Traffic Safety Engineering Section Manager. Again, traffic safety is of paramount importance to the department, the county, and of course, all the developers and whatnot out there. We want to make sure everyone can move around efficiently and safely. In line with that, we continue our commitment to work with everyone through the scoping, planning, construction process. And we continue looking for ways to improve and make that more efficient and less laborious for everyone involved. Specifically, with special use permits, we encourage to work with you to try and make address any safety concerns you may have at that point. Included in that is one of the things we are doing a lot of is traffic management plans to help bring sites, improve safety at sites which may be difficult or have limiting circumstances. Another thing to be aware of is there are continuing changes in standards with VDOT, and nationally we're also expecting a new manual of uniform traffic control devices to come out later this year or early next year. Specifically, there's some changes in pedestrian facilities. We are working with our planners and plan reviewers to make sure that those are covered and everything is up to date. We also are looking at improving or adding traffic calming during the development and plan review process. We know this is a concern in a lot of neighborhoods, and developers would like to do that. So we are trying to formalize that as we review the MUTCD. And then finally, street lighting is a critical part of traffic safety and pedestrian safety. We are looking at just doing that as part of the planning process as well as a pre-construction process, and we're always looking for efficiencies in that. Please just be aware that if utilities are moving around on your development, they can impact the street lighting and whatnot. So we encourage you to work with our construction team and our plan reviewers as you work through that. And that's all I have for you today. So we can move to the next slide and I believe the next section. Thank you.
Thank you, Transportation. I appreciate it that you were joining us today. So VDOT asked that I make you guys aware that they are hosting a land use forum in 2024. There will be more information coming out later. It's been tentatively scheduled to be held in Culpeper, and they did include the land use forum website information on here. Once this meeting is over and the recording is stopped, it will be posted on our website. So Eric Spencer has included in this slide his email address. So if you want to contact him, please feel free. So we'll move on to the next presentation. And this is the planning office. David McGettigan is here to share some of the things happening in the planning office. So David, just let me know when you want me to advance the slides.
Thank you, Joyce. Again, I'm David McGettigan. I'm the acting planning director in the planning office. And I have a few things to go over with you quickly, some new procedures, some upcoming zoning text amendments and just give you a little update on where we are with the affordable dwelling unit ordinance. Next slide. So we have a new quality control checklist process for rezonings and special use permits. So those land use applications, please make sure you check out the new checklist before you submit. We accept those in our office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, except holidays. And applications are reviewed for completeness within 15 days. And we will notify you if it's incomplete or does not pass QC, and you will have 10 business days to provide all the missing materials. And if you don't provide it, we will ask you to come and pick this application up and take it back. And the quality control checklist has all the materials that are needed. And if you have any questions, we have pre-application meetings. You can come and you can also call and check if you have any questions. Call our office. And there's a link down at the bottom of the slide with the to the new quality control checklist. Again, this is for rezonings and special use permit applications, proffer amendments, those things that are coming through the planning office. Next slide. We also, one of the pre-application requirements that required for all our application is a cultural resource assessment check. It's been a one-page PDF fillable form that you've sent in. We now have it available through the e-portal to apply for the cultural resources assessment check online. And that is hopefully makes it a little easier for everybody. It certainly works better for us. And there's instructions online for how to fill out the cultural resources assessment check. Next slide. So zoning text amendments, we have a number that we're working on. We certainly have a lot that are behind this that we're working on, but these are the ones that are at the top of the list. I guess it's not on the slide, but we recently approved a change for public lots. Previously, public lots were required to have a 10-foot landscape area. In the zoning ordinance required that around public lots, peripheral landscape area. And so we took that requirement out of the zoning ordinance because things in the zoning ordinance, of course, require variance. And there was a need to have some relief from this requirement. So now it refers to the DCSM, for the regulations on buffering and screening. And so that public lots are now subject to the same standards as private lots. And so that was a simple change that we recently got approved by the board. We are working on drive-through uses and curbside pickup. Since the pandemic, we've had a lot of popping up of curbside pickup parking spaces. There are technically in the zoning ordinance a drive-in, drive-up, drive-through uses are all lumped together. And so it's not permitted. We're instead of requiring special use permit, we're trying to adjust the code so that curbside pickup is a by right use in a parking space. So if there's a parking space, that you can convert it into a curbside pickup space by right. The commercial sign regulations are what we're calling temporary signage now. It deals with the real estate signs mostly for commercial properties was the concern. We updated the sign regulations a couple of years ago. And this was something that we needed to fix from that. So we're working on that. We hope to bring it to the Planning Commission soon to make by right real estate signs for commercial development, and as well as signs for construction activities. So that's in the works. We're also working on industrial parking requirements. We have users that need additional off-site parking for their fleet vehicles, particularly distribution fulfillment centers, and need to be able to park off-site some of their vehicles. So we are looking at that. Transportation is helping us with that. We also we've established a working group that's looking at all these ETAs. Again, we have about 20 of them that have been initiated by the board, and the board is looking to get those done. So we are working on that as a group, and including we have a special working group for the data center overlay district that we're working on the regulations. We're focused right now on noise, and we'll be bringing forward a DCSM amendment that we hope to get initiated to temporarily require larger buffers for data centers. So look for that in the near future. We're going to bring that forward to get initiated by the board, and we're continuing with this working group to look more holistically at our regulations for data centers. We also have some state mandated changes based on changes in state code. They're fairly minor things. The main big issue is in 2023, they changed the notification requirements. So previously we had requirements that we notify between 5 and 21 days, running 2 consecutive weeks. Now it has to run 2 consecutive weeks, 14 days before. So that's pushed us to just those 2 weeks before the hearing to publish, and that was a big change in that, where we used to have 3 weeks out sometimes, and we could do the 3rd week and the 2nd week, and then that 1 week before it would be a fallback in case something went wrong with the first 2. So now we're limited to just that 2, and it has to be advertised 14 days before the board or the planning commission acts on the application. So that means if you have a deferral, even if it's to a date certain, we will still have to re-advertise that public hearing, because we need to advertise it before that action occurs. So if you got a deferral, we're going to have to re-advertise it. Then we are also working on amendments to the zoning ordinance and the DCSM to make it consistent with the new comprehensive plan, which was adopted by the board last December, and particularly in things of interest in this amendment is that it was the board's policy before December 2022 that sewer lines cannot be extended into the rural area, and that is no longer the case. So that has been changed, and so that just needs to be reflected into the zoning ordinance. So we are working on things like that, and some other changes to the zoning ordinance referring to long-range land uses that no longer exist. So next slide. So just an update where we are with affordable housing. One, there's a misconception out there that affordable housing is only for the people in poverty, and so we're trying to get the message out there, trying to educate people. Affordable housing is for everyone. Everyone needs affordable housing, and it's important for retirees on a fixed income, for our quality of life, to let people live where you work and decrease our vehicles miles traveled, and have traffic off of our roads, for attracting good employers, and for our workforce that is in the income levels that are going to need. Our teachers and our firefighters need housing that's affordable to them so they can be in the jurisdiction which they work. Next slide. So also part of the housing issue is because we just haven't been building enough houses in the last since 2008, really. And so the red dotted line shows what we should have been producing to meet our population growth. And the yellow line is what we've actually producing. And you can see that it's even gone down recently. So we have a shortfall of producing housing. And so I think the new comprehensive plan update has and the new housing chapter and our focus on affordable housing are all coming together to hopefully provide more housing and address the affordable housing issue. Next slide. So next steps, we had a work session with the board on this on the 17th, I think it was, 24th maybe. And we have the, it was the 17th. We have we're working on reviewing a draft ordinance, working on a draft ordinance right now. And we will be hopefully soon coming out with that draft ordinance. There's still some work to do from working with our internal agencies in the county attorney's office to get the ordinance in shape. We're also working with industry leaders in the housing industry to get their input on the draft. We will get the draft out and have public information, comment meetings, as well as going to the DCSM Zoning Ordinance Advisory Committee and work sessions and eventually hearings. And that's the Affordable Dwelling Unit Ordinance, which is only one of the tools in our toolbox to address affordable housing. And essentially it's providing bonus density or other incentives in exchange for providing affordable units. And so that's what the Affordable Dwelling Unit Ordinance is about, is to allow that to occur and encourage affordable housing through increased density. Next slide. So realizing that that's not the only tool that we have, we're going to start working on some other things too. We're going to ask the board to initiate some more zoning text amendments. One, to look at incentive zoning, which is enabled in the state legislation, accessory dwelling units, which are additional units on like on a single family lot, like over the garage or in the back yard or attached to the house. Monitoring and supply and compliance with the and tracking housing, affordable housing units. That's one of the things we're going to be working on, how to do that and to set up the procedures and the staff needed to help to do and enforce, administer an affordable housing unit program. We're going to look at some additional unit types in the planned mixed residential district. Right now, it goes from duplex to townhouses, and so there's some missing types of housing in the district type. So we want to provide opportunities for those 2/2s, quadplexes, sixplexes, triplexes, other types of housing that can be provided that's not necessarily a townhouse and not necessarily a duplex, but somewhere in between. We are going to, we have a consultant on board helping with us with this, and they're also going to review the zoning ordinance for additional opportunities to provide and or incentivize affordable housing. And we're working with our Department of Housing and Community Development to develop a housing trust fund to help provide some monetary help for affordable housing units. And I think that's my last slide.
Okay, thank you, David, for sharing all that information with us. It's valuable information. Our next presentation is from the Service Authority, and Ed Kovalchuk is here to share some information about the Service Authority.
Thank you. I'm Ed Kovalchuk. I'm a project engineer for the Prince William County Service Authority, and will be presenting the updates on behalf of the authority. Next slide, please. This presentation will involve discussing three primary updates. The first being private sanitary sewer. The second would be discussing the Service Authority's rates and fees. And then lastly, the Service Authority submittals, which would include the information sheet, info lot grading plans, and digital plan submissions. Next slide, please. All right, so first talking about private sanitary sewer, those sewers that can only serve a single property and could not be extended for public use or shared use by others would be designated a private sanitary sewer. Those sewer systems would still require inspection. Service Authority recognized a gap for the inspections of those sewers, and it made a decision to provide its inspection services and specialized equipment to carry out those inspections for the benefit of all parties. To facilitate that, there are some requirements in the plans that are necessary to enable those services. The first would be making certain that all private sanitary sewer is labeled in both the plan and the profiles. Clarifying the private sewer by ensuring no Service Authority easements are applied. All private sanitary sewer would be reviewed and then inspected. And to carry out that, quantities for sewer would be reported in both the inspection and CCTV inspection areas of the Service Authority's information sheet to assess those fees. The Service Authority would not as-built any of the private sewer, and therefore is not listed in the sheet and would be an exclusion. Next slide, please. In April of 2023, the Service Authority's board adopted an updated user rate and fee schedule. And the first increase took effect in April of 2023. And with that, the fees increase the January of the following year of 2024 and 2025. And the information is available on our website. And to bring some clarity, so if you were to process a plan and to get it permitted and you got a quote for the availability fees in 2023, but waited until 2024 to make payment, the fees effective as of January 2024 would be the fee that would have to be paid. So that's an important thing to note in scheduling your payments. Next slide, please. Service Authority submittals. The Service Authority, to accommodate some of the increases in the availability fees that are scheduled for the coming years, has updated its information sheet so that we can bring that information to the forefront of notifying the owner that there are scheduled increases for the planned certification of water and sewer accounts. Another recent update, Service Authority's worked with Public Works in coordinating those infill lot grading plans where water and sewer connections are requested. So those lot grading plans do require the review of the Service Authority and need to be submitted directly to the Service Authority. And we've worked with Public Works to update the application form to give notification that those plans do have to be reviewed by the Service Authority as they're processed. And important note is that the plans will not be forwarded for review. That's the role of the engineer to make certain he's making the proper submissions and acquires the appropriate approvals. Service Authorities also worked with the county to develop a digital intake of electronic plans. We have a email address where those notifications are placed and downloads are made. So they are available for direct submissions when appropriate. However, all submission requirements do need to follow Prince William County's land development process and adhere to those guidelines. Next slide, please. Next category we want to speak of is the requirements for data center and industrial development. And we'll be covering metering configurations, access agreements, and an industrial use survey. Next slide. So with that, we have a number of data center developments. They would be subject to completing an industrial user form, which would need to disclose the proper discharges. So this one here about the metering configurations, we recognize that those data centers have unique needs, and to accommodate that, sometimes in a combination of water meters, water only meters, sub meters, process discharge, sewer meters are needed. And to help bring some of that clarity, we've developed a brochure to help identify those different combinations and to set some guidance that would comply and align with both the Service Authority standards, approved products, and billing systems. So there is some complexities and limits of the configurations of how accounts and metering systems are available. So that brochure is available, and then Service Authority staff is also available at any time to discuss with the applicant those needs. Next slide, please. Access agreements. So we're encountering a number of data centers and other land uses that require secure sites. And within those secure sites are still public utilities that the Service Authority requires access to. So the easements are in full effect, but we found that the owner typically has terms and conditions for those access. So the Service Authority has implemented a omnibus access agreement at the onset of those secured sites to be completed and submitted. And the Service Authority is requesting disclosure of those terms and conditions that may be applicable for the access to the site, so that we can service those public utilities and affirm that the design is compatible with those restrictions or coordinations. Typically, that access agreement consists of two parts, both an agreement piece that is not recorded that has the specific details, and a memorandum that is recorded and is basically a public notice that there's an access agreement between the owner and the Service Authority without divulging any proprietary information. Next slide, please. So for our industrial user surveys, the Service Authority has in its utility standards manual the requirement for data centers and other applicable land uses to complete an industrial user survey. And that survey's purpose is to disclose the discharge from those land uses to confirm that it does not have a chemical component or alternating the pH that would affect the treatment of the discharge. So at the very onset of the plan application, this is a requirement to make certain that what is discharged doesn't require additional permitting, monitoring, or additional requirements. And that form is available on the website and used for those purposes. Next slide, please. The last topic here is the sewage bypass pumping. Sewer bypass pumping and other flow control means are defined for those construction activities that take some portion of the existing public sewer out of service. Service Authority has published standards in section 514 of the manual. And what is also done is developed a template of a plan and adopted it as Appendix S to help standardize the action plan for that bypass operation. It also guides the contractor to give considerations to the multiple factors that are needed to conduct a successful bypass. So those are some best practices that we've implemented and are disclosing in our new appendix. You also see what we call service vac truck. So in situations where the bypass pumping operation is not the best tool, the appropriate tool, Service Authority does have a provision to intercept flows through vac trucks for a condition of tie-in. Typically, this is for a very short duration of period and requires a different level of coordination, but is an appropriate tool when the site factors require it. Last item is about pump and haul, and not to be confused with any of the other two mentioned activities. This is a means of providing wastewater disposal through septic haulers that do not have a connection to the public sewer system. There's typically a temporary or permanent pump and haul permit. Both of these permits are ultimately approved first by the Prince William County Board and then is administered by the Service Authority. And that would conclude our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. We'll move on then to the Public Works Environmental Services Division and updates by Raj Bidari.
Good afternoon. My name is Raj Bidari with the Department of Public Works, Environmental Management Division's Plan Review section. Today, I would like to provide you with an update on the erosion and stormwater management regulations, as well as per maps. On June 22nd of 2023, the State Water Control Board adopted the Virginia Erosion and Sediment Control Regulation as final regulations with an effective date of July 1st of 2024 and repealed the current E&S control regulations, E&S control stormwater certification regulations, and stormwater management program regulations. Through consolidating these three chapters, the new regulation clarifies program requirements, eliminates redundancies, and corrects inconsistencies between erosion and sediment control regulations and stormwater management program regulations. No substantial changes to existing erosion and sediment control minimum standards or to the post-construction stormwater management technical criteria are part of this regulation. The next item is the stormwater construction general permit. The 2019 general BPDS permit for discharges of stormwater from construction activities, also known as Construction General Permit or CGP, became effective on July 1st of 2019 and expires on June 30th of 2024. This new permit is under public comment until December 5th of 2023. Once the public comments is over, once the comments are addressed, we should be getting a final version of the VPDS for the new 2024 VPDS permit, and along with that, the fact sheet. Once we have that information, we will inform all the active CGP holders to apply for the new permit, whose work will be beyond June 30th of 2024. As to the preliminary flood insurance rate map, FEMA has proposed changes to the effective maps. I will talk about more in the next slide, please. Due to the consolidated erosion and stormwater management regulations, as I discussed earlier, we need to make amendments to county stormwater management code and section 700 of the design and construction standards manual. DEQ is currently working on the consolidated model ordinance, but we don't have the definitive date yet on when it will be made available for us to work on our amendments. We will let the development community know when we are ready to make these amendments to Stormwater Management Code and Section 700 of the DCSM. As to the flood hazard overlay district, FEMA is finalizing the changes to the preliminary flood insurance rate maps and FIS reports. Once finalized, FEMA sends us, the community, a letter of final determination to adopt and amend the county's floodplain regulations within 6 months period. These regulations must be approved by both the state and FEMA. Since our floodplain regulations comply with the NFIP requirements, we probably need to amend map reference sections of the regulations to identify the new firm and FIS reports. So as of now, I am expecting the preliminary firm maps going into effect sometime late spring of 2024 or early part of the summer. That is my expectation, since it includes many of the incorporated areas as well. So I cannot, definitely state that it will happen, but it is very likely. Next section, please. DEQ is currently preparing new stormwater management handbook. This will consolidate and update DEQ's existing manuals, technical bulletins, design standards and specifications, and guidance documents related to post-construction stormwater management, as well as erosion and sediment control. In addition, this handbook will create additional clarity, consistency, and time savings for design professionals preparing post-construction stormwater management and or erosion and sediment control plans. This document will be housed in an online platform called ENCODE Plus. It has features like dynamic search, easy to make comments and track changes, and is a live document. So it is easy to make amendments on as needed basis. So DEQ is thinking of creating a board to at least review twice in a year to make any needed amendments. So this is a good news for the development community, specifically for the design professionals. On the side note, there is DEQ is also working on making some changes to the Virginia runoff reduction method. They are proposing to add additional land cover or splitting the forest land cover into 2 land covers. And also there is some changes coming to the loading as well. So we'll know once we receive a memorandum or so from the DEQ, and probably we'll have some time to make changes related to this. When I had a chance to talk to the director, Michael Rolban, on Monday when I was there for one of the meetings. Since stormwater model ordinance is not yet out, and for us to implement and adopt, it will take some time. So there could be a memorandum coming out from DEQ giving us some leeway to adopt it within 1 year of the effective date. But I'm not sure yet. But we'll wait to see what happens, because they are running a little bit behind on their stormwater management model ordinance. So if you have any questions, please give us a call, or you know how to contact me. And as to the ENCODE Plus, this online platform, it has been already, I think, implemented at in Fairfax County, and I think Loudoun County as well. I think that's what I heard when the presentation was made to us. That's all I have. Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you, Ramesh. Okay, so the next presentation is presented by Bill Westerman, a project manager here at the Land Development Division. So Bill,
Hi.
good.
Hey everyone, I'm Bill Westerman with Land Development. I'm a land development project manager, and I'm going to fill you in on some changes with land development submissions and e-review. Next slide, please. The Land Development Division has been working on implementing a system for online submissions. There's been a lot of progress and a few revisions to the online submission process. In the following slides, I'll provide some new and important information on online submissions. Next slide. Below is lists of currently active land development cases that can be submitted online. This includes ASPs, waivers, standalone plats, zoning cases, lot grading plans, and site and subdivision plans. Basically, all land development applications can be submitted online at this point. Next phase of online submissions will be for permits, which will include grading, land disturbance, site development, and site preparation permits. The target date for us to start the process of developing online permitting systems is actually pending at this time. Next slide. We are now taking online payments. Online payments are currently available for all ASPs, plats, zoning cases, and site plan review payments. However, any fees over $20,000 still need to be paid by check. Another important note is that proffer fees still need to be paid by check, and an invoice will not be issued through the ePortal system for proffers. In the future, we are going to set up online payments associated with grading, land disturbance, site development, and site preparation permits. Target date for these online payments are pending, but don't get confused with the review fee payments and the site permit payments. Review fees can be paid online, but any related site permits, which you'll get on an approval letter, still need to be paid either by phone with a credit card or by check or by credit card in person at the land development counter. Next page. Few important points for online submissions that we have noticed as more online applications have been submitted are shown on this slide. Please be sure to include all required forms for online submissions. If you do not include all the required forms initially, you will get a QC documentation denial. Required forms include, but are not limited to, the development control form, which we call the DCF, the application checklist, plan or plat checklist. That's what the application checklist is. The review fee calculation form, and the application documents such as the site plan or plat. After QC reviews are complete, you will receive an invoice by email requesting payment for the case. Payment can be made on your ePortal account, over the phone, or in person. Please be sure to make payments timely when you receive the invoices to continue the processing of the cases. If paying online, be sure that the individual paying online has an ePortal account and is on the development control form. If this is not the case, they will not be able to pay online. It's important that all the contact information on the development control form matches the contact information on the ePortal account. This includes email addresses, suite numbers, phone numbers, etc. If the development control form information does not match the active ePortal account information, that contact with an active ePortal account may not be granted access to the case in ePortal. This has been happening quite a bit where the control form doesn't have the same information as the active ePortal account. And then we're getting emails asking why they can't see the case. And then we have to go in and add these people with an ePortal account to the case. And typically the main reason is because the information that was submitted when applying doesn't match the information for the ePortal account. Next slide. Some important process changes are listed here. For plats and deeds submitted electronically, we do not need to have the owner signatures for county attorney review. However, the digital stamp and signature of the engineer is required on the plats for county attorney review. We've updated our signature summary letters to address that and state that that needs to be the case. After a plat is recorded, the instrument number or a copy of the recorded plat must be provided to the Land Development Division. Instructions on providing this information are located in the plan approval letter. Other important changes to some of the steps in the approval letter for e-review plans are shown here on this next part of the slide. If Prince William County Department of Transportation or Prince William Environmental Management is a review agency, a hard copy of the digitally stamped plan must be provided to those agencies prior to the pre-construction meeting. So typically the engineer or developer is responsible for printing off those stamped copies to scale and giving them to those two agencies if the pre-construction meeting is required for them. If Prince William County Service Authority is a review agency, a hard copy of the digital stamp plan must be provided to them prior to obtaining any necessary PWCSA permits. So again, the engineer, the developer needs to print off those plans and drop off to scale and drop that off at Prince William County Service Authority prior to obtaining any of their permits. If you guys don't do this stuff, what will happen is it'll delay the permitting process. Instructions on dropping off the hard copy plans to these review agencies will be clearly provided in the plan approval letter. And if you have any questions, you can also reach out to your project manager. Next slide. Information on user guides and videos for online submissions are shown on the slide. PDF guides and videos have been created for customers and employees. And this slide provides a link to training PDFs and videos for customers. That's the end of the land development section. And I guess we're holding questions till later. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Phil. And the next presentation is from the Fire Marshal's office. Ernest Little is here to present new information.
Good afternoon from the Fire Marshal's office. Today we're going to be talking about those land development things that affect everyone in the land development area. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. There we go. We are a part of the land development review plan process. We look at pretty much everything that has anything that has changes dealing with access to a building or access to a site with regards to fire department operations. The fire marshal's office does provide a lot of guidance on trying to avoid issues later in a project. But we believe in trying to catch issues early on to prevent later delays in approvals. Many times you'll see us very early on, especially if you're dealing with a rezoning or special use permit. You may see a comment coming back from the fire marshal's office. We'd like to have a meeting to talk about fire department access. That's where a lot of those issues come up, especially with the larger projects we're seeing today. The requirements that we see in the section 300 of the Design and Construction Standards Manual, and that's our section, are really based upon requirements coming out of the Virginia Statewide Building Code, the Virginia Statewide Fire Prevention Code, and also NFPA Fire Code standards and recommended practices. And really what we need to have is that designers, engineers, and developers ensure due diligence to make sure that they look at these standards before they submit something to see if they're in compliance. Elsewise, they'll probably end up with having a meeting or receiving a rejection that will delay the project. Next slide, please. With the formal process for site plans, we're working, of course, with land development as one of the reviewing agencies. We do have an E-plan submittal for fire lane plans, and fire lane plans we've talked about a little bit here in a moment. Early consultation and guidance correlated with the DCMS section 300. And you may see us, as I said before, requesting meetings to clarify questions that arise in the review process. Once again, that's trying to help you streamline the process and be able to get an approval on a submission. And sometimes during that submission process, we might take I'm going to use the term digital submission directly to the fire marshal's office, trying to clarify something that might be a fire lane sign or dealing with an underground fire line or something of that nature. Next slide, please. This sort of gives you an idea with the fire marshal's office. Of course, we deal with the planning and zoning office on rezoning and special use permits. That typically gets us into the land development site plans and subdivision plans, where we are working with that. And then that takes us into working into the building development. We did not necessarily see anything dealing with a structure in terms of architectural plans, but we do handle the items from the building code dealing with the fire protection systems chapter 9, and a lot of what's in special use chapter 4 in the building code. You'll see us getting involved because we're talking about special requirements dealing with those special uses. A lot of those are hazardous and hazardous materials involvement. But chapter 9 pretty much is the big chapter for us in the building department, dealing with the fire protection plans. And we do the plan review, and our office also does the inspections and final approval back to the fire marshal's approval to the building official, which then results in your occupancy permit. So we're involved in just about every step of the process, from a piece of land being looked at to the final building of that structure at some point. Next slide, please. So the fire lanes and plans, so we have a new development being submitted with the site plan or the subdivision plan. And sometimes we have a situation, we have an existing site that already has an approved site plan or subdivision plan, and we're just changing the fire lane configuration within the complex that make a standalone. Any of these changes, once we start affecting the fire lanes, require a fire lane permit from the fire marshal's office, and that permit's going to require the submission of an approved site plan or the standalone site plan, if you will, being submitted with the application, so we can see that this was acted on before. One of the reasons we moved the fire lane plan process forward in the site plan and subdivision plan area was we didn't want to get into a discussion of fire department access at the end when someone's trying to get into the building and wanted to get it up front, everybody be aware of what the requirements were. One of the things we're seeing a lot of plans coming in now over the last year where a site is phased. As an example, a data center may not build all the buildings on that site. They'll build building 1 or building 2, but we have to have the fire lanes approved as we get those buildings built. And we can't go through an area that, if you will, isn't constructed to get to a finished building. We have to have the finished roadway and have the fire lanes established. There's direct feedback from the reviewer, reducing resubmittals and decreasing the delays. We deal with the fire lanes, and it is an electronic process now with us in terms of the fire lane permit. The next slide, please. Some of the issues we've seen in 2003 and the challenges we're facing, the bigger development projects on even smaller remote land areas are causing problems with fire department access, where the topography is not getting any flatter. A lot of that flat land has been developed. Now we're starting to deal with areas where we have topography issues with grades and areas where we get fire access roads in. We're also getting to some areas where the water supply has not been extended into all portions of the county. We obviously still have a portion of the county that does not have public water, but we have requirements for fire flow and requirements for protection for fire protection water for fire protection systems required by the building code that we have to work through. One of the things in dealing with the underground fire lines, a lot of issues come up during the plan review process, and also later on we get into the situation of having to work on the plan that's being built. Excuse me, I seem to have a sinus thing going here for a moment. So one of the things we get into is the cut sheets for the piping and connections such are not being provided. Intersections of their utility conduits, storm and roof drains, sanitary sewer lines, and similar items. If we have a conduit that has exposure to the atmospheric air that's 40 degrees or less and it's within 36 inches of an underground fire line, there's a possibility that it could cause the underground fire line to freeze earlier than you usually see with a normal water line serving the public. This is because the underground fire line water is not moving; it's stagnant, if you will. It's static, and could freeze at a higher temperature. So, and the other thing we get into that is we don't have that 36-inch requirement being met, and also the 42-inch requirement from the higher level of the ground to the upper side of the underground fire line. We had to have insulation packages, and the insulation packages consist of the materials that are going to be used to insulate. We need to have the cut sheets on that insulation. We also need to have R value calculations, so we see that the R values being provided by the insulation package is equivalent to 36 inches of earth. And the next item we get into is fire department access. And one of the things that we're having some difficulties with now is underground stormwater facilities. And these things are being attempted to be put in the fire lane, or if they're within 100 feet of a structure, they need to be posted as to the presence and load carrying capability. And one of the things we talked to with regards to the load carrying capability, that's going to be an 80,000 pounds, 80,000 tons would be a lot. 80,000 pound fire apparatus that's a triple axle, if you will, tandem axle, and 45 feet in length. Next slide, please. In the fire department access, also the data centers and larger buildings, we have a requirement in the DCSM for the 150-foot hose line measurement. A lot of engineers and designers like to draw an arc from the fire hydrant, and that is not how we measure the distance. We measure distance as a hose line would be laid. So we're going to be staying into the streets and transversing the ground as we can, but we can't penetrate a 15-foot drop and that sort of thing. So we have to look at that 150 feet to any point of an outside wall, exterior wall, from a point of fire department access. And with the data centers especially, we get into situations where they're fencing the generator equipment areas, And that requires several gates for us to meet the 150-foot requirement, and also being able to negotiate the any changes that may be caused due to elevations or things we encounter, such as platforms and the like, going to those generators. And I've already talked about the fire hydrant coverage. Fire hydrants within 300 feet of all parts of an exterior wall, and a minimum of 50 feet away from a building being protected. In the day center requirements, especially where we have parallel buildings, we see situations where hydrants are going to have to be on both sides of the street to keep us 50 feet away from the building and be able to meet the 300-foot requirement. And that 50-foot requirement is there for protection of our firefighters from a building collapse. Another one that we run into a lot is the fire department connections and the hydrant that supplies the fire department connection. The maximum requirement, maximum allowable distance rather, is 100 feet between the two, and we need to have a clear line of sight between the fire hydrant supplying the fire department connection and the fire department connection itself. Next slide, please. Electric gates, we're seeing a lot more electric gates. If the electric gates are there and they're in the fire department access, we're going to have to look at the fact that the DCSM does require click to enter. And that's a connection between the gate itself and our radio system that allows us to use our radio system to activate the gate and have the gate open when we get on site. If you have a situation where you have a staffed gatehouse, if it's staffed 24/7, 365, a waiver could be submitted for that. And if we see the fact that staffing is there, we can look at a waiver for the click to enter. However, if some point down the line they decide to take the staffing away from that gate, then you got to install click to enter at that time. Another thing to be done here is the Knox box switch or key can be used as a backup to the primary system. Another issue that we are seeing a lot more of is the 2,500 gallon minute fire flow for the commercial multifamily residential, especially when we're trying to develop a structure in the non-hydrated area of the county. And we need to have another way to work with that, and apply some sort of a waiver being given for that. If we're looking at single family detached and two family dwellings, it's going to vary from 1,000 to 2,000 gallons per minute fire flow required, depending upon the separation distance between the buildings. And when we talk about the fire flow does not include the water for sprinkler or domestic systems. So we're talking about available water on the site. It has to be the fire flow, and that fire flow is going to be a separate item from the entire flow required on the site. That's going to be your fire flow plus your sprinkler requirement plus your domestic requirements. We try to identify these early on. We do have portions of the county where we're stressing the system due to the amount of development, and the Service Authority and the Virginia American Water Company are working on improvements, but sometimes we're just a little bit ahead of those improvements, and we need to be able to do something until we get to the improvement in place. Next slide, please. So we look at the waivers. That's the last resort, and the top three things we look at are water supply flow issues, lot offsets, fire department access, and another one sometimes is dealing with the height limitation that's imposed in the zoning ordinance, and dealing with that, and it's something that what needs to be done to allow us to give a waiver to a maximum height. For this to happen, we need to have communication between the designers and the county itself. If we're filing for the waiver, we need to know what DCSM sections that waiver is being requested for, and the mitigating measures need to be provided within the waiver request. Some things we look at are hardy plank, increased level, or more fire resistant construction, providing a sprinkler system, or having a smaller fire area. But the bottom line is, we've bolted it here, is the cost and convenience are not considered as a mitigating measure. If it's code required, it's not an additional mitigation. So you cannot propose a sprinkler system as a mitigation effort to a problem with a DCSM. It's required by the code, You need something in addition to the sprinkler system. Next slide, please. If you have any questions, you can contact Chief Smolsky. He's our fire code official. It's our fire marshal also. Battalion Chief Tom German's the deputy fire marshal. He's the one pretty much you'll probably deal with on a day-to-day basis. And our Chief of Plans Review, Fire Protection Engineer Lyndon Lowe. So those are our three primary contacts, and I believe that's our last slide, Joyce.
Thank you very much, Ernie. I appreciate it. So we've come to the end of our presentation, and I'd like to open the floor then for anyone who has a question. Just let me know if you have something you'd like to ask any of our participant agencies with regard to their presentation or any information that you are seeking. Just let me know. Okay, if there's no questions or comments, we really appreciate all of you joining us today for our fall presentation, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you all very much for a wonderful day today. Thanks.